council meeting 21st of October. So this meeting is being recorded, as you can see, and we have some people in the waiting room there. We also have Sinead from the media sitting in this morning via Zoom. And of course, item 1 is the opening for our meeting, and welcome, Realm of Sands. It's a while since we've spoken to you, so welcome, and we'd invite you to open our meeting.
Thank you. Thank you for the welcome. Let's join together in prayer. E te atua, o mai ki a mātou, tau maramatanga, tau rangimarie, tau kahame, tau aroha, mō tēnei rā. O Lord, give to us your enlightenment, your heavenly peace, your strength and your love for this meeting. And guide our councillors as they deliberate and make decisions, that they will be wise and caring to each other. We pray this in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Realm. I appreciate that. Thank you for your time this morning, and you're welcome to stay with us or enjoy your day.
I might stay just for a minute or two.
Excellent, thank you. Right, item 2, apologies. We have a full team this morning, although Councillor Short does need to leave at 1 o'clock. Requests for leave of absence, we have none. So we can go straight to item 4, which is the confirmation of minutes on page 6.
If you wish, I move that the minutes of the council meeting held 7th of October 2021 be adopted as a true and correct record.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hadfield?
No, not quite, Your Worship. I just did note in the minutes that, and I can't recall which one it was, they're on page 11. I'm aware that Councillor Campbell also recorded a vote against one of the motions, and I can't recall which one it was.
Thank you. Let's get that correct, Councillor Campbell.
I think it was the last one.
To develop a broader community-wide environmental and climate change strategy and action plan. Is that the one you wish to have your name recorded against? Thank you.
Clearly feeling deeply about it.
So,
I wanted an offer an opinion. That's what I did.
so was that correct, Councillor Hadfield? Are you happy to second the motion?
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. Thank you. Right, item 5, declaration of interest. Any items on our agenda today that elected members need to declare? Councillor Short.
Thank you. Just in the community funding requests, I know we're only hearing them today, but I won't participate in the questions with the Anglican Parish and the Health and Community Trust. I'm also presenting the Rocketeer Community Committee's application on their behalf, as none of them could be here today.
Thank you. That is noted. Anything further? Anyone? No. Right. Great. There are no public forum items this morning. Our presentations will be held at 1 o'clock today. No notification of late items, no recommendations from committees, so we can move on. No minutes from other committees for information. So we can go straight to item 11, officers' reports. And these are the hearings for our annual plan funding applications. And today is simply to hear those who have chosen to speak to their requests for consideration for funding for the annual plan for the next financial year. So there will be no decision sought today, and we will look at all of the submissions for a decision on the 18th of November. So I'm looking to Ali to see if we have our speakers with us.
At the moment, we only have Shelley Ashton for Velocity Boxing and Councillor Short for Rocketeer Community Committee.
Thank you. So maybe, morning Shelley, would you be happy to jump a queue and come in first with your Velocity Boxing?
Yes, certainly, Helen.
We're on page 13 of the hearing schedule. So the floor is yours, Shelley.
Certainly, thank you. So the Velocity Fielding Boxing Club is a community offering that's been around for about 10 years. We cater to pretty much anyone from a child who might benefit from some structure and discipline in their lives to perhaps an older demographic who might wish to fight, or simply someone who enjoys the sociable exercise component. We currently have 5 boxing bags that I've brought over the years, but pre-COVID, we experienced a need for more. So hence my funding application. Any questions?
Thank you. Shelley, how many regular members do you have?
It varies a lot. So I guess taking last year's figures, we would have, so we're operating 2 nights a week only at the moment, and we vary from about 15 people to 20 people per session.
And my other question is, have you looked at any other third-party agencies for funding?
No, we haven't. And I think one of the reasons for that is time. It's just me, so I don't have a lot of time to look at other options there.
Thank you. Right, let's open it up for questions. Councillor Humphreys.
Morena, Shelley. My question for you is, had you given consideration to applying to Council's Community Development Fund as opposed to as an annual plan request? Just aware that funding, there is funding available and there is a round currently open.
Yes, I had, Councillor Humphrey. So the issue there was that I hadn't, my fault entirely, I hadn't structured my application very well, in that, so the boxing club currently is located on a property a trust owns, and certainly we also have an incorporated society which we're setting up at the moment. So I hadn't got to a point where I was happy to apply from either of those.
Thank you.
I guess the other point carrying on from Councillor Humphrey is that then a decision either way would be able to be made sooner than going through the annual plan process. Would that be correct, Councillor Humphrey?
Yes.
So that is an option for you as well, but we'll take this. Thank you. Are there any other questions in regards to the club? You said you meet 2 nights a week, is that right?
Correct. There is enough demand to be coaching every night of the week and weekends, but my schedule doesn't really allow for that.
Okay. And does your boxing club, or is it the same as the one that the police are involved with?
Correct. So we have an activity called Te Pou Tawhawhanui, which is myself, sponsored by the council and the police. And the police had identified some youngsters in the community that they'd had interaction with who might benefit from some boxing training. We run that once a week on a Monday afternoon at Evolve Fitness, who kindly have let us have their facility. We can't run that during level 2 because it's almost impossible to keep children 2 meters apart while they're training. So we just have to wait till we're back to level 1 for that activity to resume.
Okay, thank you. My reason for asking for that, I'm just trying to think ways of fast tracking to help you. There is some funding in the Manawatu Youth Development and Wellbeing Trust that is changed for boxing. So I suggest you talk to Constable Alan McLean.
Right, I will. Thank you.
But thank you for making your submission. Thank you for the work that you're doing with our young people. That's fantastic. The more we can help them.
Privilege.
Yeah. So thank you for that, and we'll come back to you in due course.
Thank you, everybody.
Right, now we can go back to the top of the list. I see Tony. Welcome, Tony. Tony's here to speak on behalf of the Bolton Community Committee, and their submission is on page 6.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
So, yeah, my submission, or our submission, is to seal a driveway into the Competence Cemetery with a parking area on the cemetery reserve land. Now, as you probably know, the Competence Cemetery is situated on a very blind corner. And currently, people, when they are attending a funeral service, better or other, they tend to park on both sides of the road, and traffic coming south come around the corner and generally at speed. And fortunately, we haven't had an accident yet, but potential to have an accident as people cross the road, especially elderly people, and also on the opposite the roadside opposite the entrance to the cemetery. There's a rather deep drain, and people do tend to struggle to get out of the passenger side. But anyway, that's the current situation, and we have asked Tony McIntyre to submit a cost to do a sealing a road through the cemetery into a parking area at the top of the cemetery. And you'll see they're quoted $15,849.87, which we'd like the council to do for us. We did talk to Carl Johnson about doing it through the reserves, I think, is it the council reserves? But he said that there's not sufficient funds there to do that. So that's why we've put an application to the long-term plan. I think that covers everything. Is there any questions?
Thank you, Tony. You touched on a question that I had, because I do recall us talking with you about this topic previously, about the traffic hazard there. And I was just going to ask, I assume, Hamish, through the roading program, where did we get to with that discussion last time?
I'll be honest, I'm
No, you're okay. Okay. So that may be worth following up where we got to with the discussion last time on that as well. Any other questions? Councillor Shaw.
Good morning, Tony. I have attended a funeral at the Competence Cemetery, which has been quite large, and certainly see what your concerns are regarding parking on that blind corner. The other thing I wondered is, should this road go ahead, I imagine it should be very helpful for undertakers as well, because it's quite difficult getting vehicles and caskets into the Competence Cemetery currently, isn't it? Especially in the winter.
Yes, it is. There is a sealed driveway into the cemetery halfway up the cemetery, where they do take the funeral director's vehicle up there. But it would certainly help, yeah, if it was extended.
Because it's quite steep, isn't it?
Yes, it is, yes. Yes, I mean, I guess in the summertime, vehicles could go up to the parking area at the top, but certainly not in the winter time. It's too wet.
Thank you. Councillor Belsky.
Yeah, Tony, just your area of parking, which you would have a hard surface in the paddock. Is there a fence around it, or can you, on a summer day, like when it's hard, can you park sort of along the paddock there?
Currently, there's a fence, obviously around the cemetery,
yeah,
with a gateway, and the gateway leads onto a flat area right at the very top of the cemetery, which summertime is firm enough to be able to park there. Well, I think most of the year actually. But Carl did ask Tony McIntyre, or sorry, I'll put it this way. The quote is for a hard civil, like a gravel area to be formed at the top there, just to make sure that people don't get stuck. It would be unfenced, but the stock would be removed as a funeral.
So there won't be a fence around that hard surface?
There's no undertaking in the quote to put a fence around there, no, that's correct. And I mean, talking to the Wilsons who graze the reserve there, they consider there would be no point in having a fence there.
Thank you. Any further questions of Tony while he's with us this morning? No. Thank you, Tony. Thank you again for your time and your passion for the Competence community and your request. So we will put that into the mix and come back to you in due course. Thank you
very much.
Thanks.
Bye.
Right, and I see Pauline. Welcome, Pauline, from the Cheltenham Community Committee. Their submission is on page 21. So, welcome. We've read your submission. Happy for you to speak to it, and then there may be some questions, Pauline.
Unmute.
Just need to unmute yourself, please.
Well, welcome, Helen and councillors. It's a great day, isn't it? Just putting apologies in for Keith this morning as he is away on holiday. He would be doing the submission otherwise, but we're looking at the playground extension across the road, and we're looking at a children's farm scene, which you might have a copy there of. And we think that keeps it in context with the rural agricultural area. The playground is being really very well used with lots of families, and also new families will be coming into the area with the subdivisions going on, and also with the wastewater going into town. I'm sure it's going to be a very favourable place to live. So that's what we're asking for. We're asking for, I mean, they're not cheap, these playgrounds, $34,000. That's not including the cost of the installation, I believe we are going to pay for. So yeah, we've got lots of other ideas, but we're going to have to start somewhere, and we've got nothing for the little children to play on. So this is where we're going to start. This is what we're asking for, and it's in our long-term plan as well. I don't know if anyone's got any questions they want to ask me.
Thanks, Pauline. You're still waiting for a quote from suppliers, but can you just run us through the type of how much equipment, etc.?
Oh, okay. Well, apparently it's this woolshed farm scene. I don't know if you can see that. So it's quite a nice little nifty little one. I thought there was one supplied for you, and the cost is actually $34,000. Oops.
Yes, we've got
it. We've got it. We've got it up on screen. My apologies. It was a late addition to our papers.
Yeah, and it's on the top, on the front of it. It's got the wool shed, and it's quite sort of. We thought it was quite themed for our community being rural. Yes, so it's $34,000. They're not cheap. We've also just installed some little swings. I think we've paid for that out of our budget, so that's really good. But there's nothing really for little children. So, and we've got it really supported by families and the locals, the grandmas and the granddads, and parents are taking their children over there. But they have said, the little children have said, we would like something for the younger children. So we thought this was a good design. It is very, very costly.
Yes, those kind of, they are. Yes, any further questions from the team? Councillor Shaw.
Hi, Pauline. Alison here.
Morning.
Would you just like to explain to those who aren't aware that the existing playground was the one that you got when the Cheltenham school closed down, so therefore it is aimed at older children, and when you installed it, your aim was always to have something else for younger children?
That is correct, Alison, and that was in our long-term plan as well. So it's not just something that we've just dreamed up and thought about. It's been very much on our minds to get things for smaller children. But of course, yeah, we've done great things over there. We really have, but we are missing a few things, and this is a great start to get it underway.
Thank you. And in the meantime, while council are looking at these, I see you applied to Eastern and Central for the base to build that.
That's correct.
Are you looking at any other funding providers to help?
We have done our own fundraising. We've done pickets and we've sold them, and we've raised with family names on them, and they've just been installed, and we've raised $2,000 for that. And also we do raffles at the hotel, and that earns $30 a week. But of course, with the pub being closed over COVID, we haven't really raised too much. But yeah, we do that every week for the community. So yeah, that's right.
Great, that's good. Okay, any final questions of Pauline? No? Thank you, Pauline. Thank you for the ongoing interest in Cheltenham, and getting that playground is certainly an asset. Every time I go past, there's always kids playing on there, and it's a great stopping place.
It is, and I think the dairy does really well out of it too. You know, they all, go and get an ice cream, and the families support it, which is fantastic.
It is. So thank you. We will come back to you once we've gone through all of these submissions and let you know how we've got on.
Yes,
so,
thank you very much. Have a great day. Cheers. Bye.
Right, now Gareth isn't joining us this morning. They're uncertain if their tournament is going to go ahead. So that one we won't be hearing from. Right, Alison, would you like to go next with the Rocketeer Community Committee? And we're on page 36.
Do you want me to do that here, or?
You're welcome to do it from there.
It's just do I need to click it, Ellie, or are you going to do it?
I'll have to one by one bring each one up and close it down because they're separate images.
Oh,
Presentation, so you just need to direct me when to put them up and when to put them down.
Would you mind pulling up the one that says Rocketeer Skate Park first? So the Rocketeer Community Committee have been investigating a skate park for the youth of Rocketeer. As I'm sure you're all aware, Rocketeer is the Manawatu District's largest village, with 600 plus residents. It's also experiencing a lot of growth. There's a lot of lifestyle subdivision happening just south of the village in the Banks Road area. And a number of those sections have already been secured by families who are going to be on the Whenuapai transfer. So they've already owned the sections, and closer to moving here, they are going to build. It has been investigated in the past. The funding couldn't be raised at that time, which was probably more than 10 years ago. Earlier this year, a delegation of youth came to the community committee and asked if they could have another look, please. And the community committee decided to form a subcommittee, and a number of parents joined that, and that's been led out by Kim Leslie. Kim's very capable in the fundraising area. She was one of the leaders of the fundraising for the Rocketeer Pool. So I have every confidence that this group will be able to achieve this project. Now, it was only just signed off at the last community committee meeting, at which Councillor Curry and Her Worship were also present, and we went and had a site visit. If you just look at that picture there, that's the sort of thing that they're looking at. Fairly simple. They're not looking at anything like the flow park over here. Would you mind putting up the next one? So a number of sites have been considered around the village, most of which were unsuitable for various reasons. Currently, their preferred site is at the back of the Te Kawau Park, which, for those of you who know Rocketeer, is on Rocketeer Road. It's just got the fish and chip shop this side, toilets the fire brigade on the other side. Next, please. It's the playground at the front. So the area that they're looking at is right at the very back of the park. So there's a playground this side, there's a grass volleyball court this side. You can see where the trees are, that's the area we're looking at. Next, please.
See a good pothole.
Now, I've talked to Carl, and Parks and Reserves in principle are okay with the site. There's just a few things that need to be sorted out. Most of the surrounding neighbours is either beer paddocks or commercial properties. I'm not quite sure what that business is over the back there, Andrew. Is it a
That's Amy's yard.
Amy's yard? And then there's one house that backs on. So where that photo is taken from behind is the backyard of a house. So I would imagine conversations would need to be held with that household. So the grass area is about the size of a tennis court. It's not quite as big as what they were hoping, but it's the area that's been agreed upon by the community. Next, please. Sorry, taking a bit long. So the way, if the site is fully approved by Parks and Reserves, there'll be some groundworks that would be required first, and there's a number of trees there at the moment. They're actually hoping that the large tree in the middle could possibly be retained. It's actually quite a nice shade tree, and the smaller trees would need to come out, which Carl has said that he has no issue with. There would need to be some drainage done as well. We can probably leave those ones there if you like, Alice. I mean, they're taking so long to load. They've gone and had a look at some other small community parks that have pools. They also went to look at some down in the Cavity area. Kim contacted two companies. They've chosen the company Tom Smithers Limited from the Taranaki, as he specialises in small skate parks. The other company that they approached immediately said, "Oh no, you couldn't possibly have anything that size because the youth wouldn't enjoy it. You'd need a budget of at least 500,000." So that one quickly was taken off the list. So that's why there is only one quote from this company in Taranaki, and he's there's sort of a bit of it's just really they're looking at a hard surface with some simple things placed on top, not bowls and scoopy things like they've got over there. So just a few things that would give youth a little bit of fun. He's recommending that this would be best for 14 and under due to the size constraints. He said, if you had a slightly larger size, you could probably do something a little bit more exciting. And just finally, it was actually the #1 item for the Rocketeer community plan when that was done several years ago, because the idea had been discussed previously and hadn't come to fruition. The community had still wanted to see it happen in the future. So we've got this motivated group of parents. The community committee have already pledged $5,000 towards the project, and they're requesting $10,000 seed funding for the project, but confirmation of the site from council and potentially any drainage that might need to be done. That's not included in the quote, which was hopefully council might be able to assist with that as well. Any questions about it?
Thank you. Great project. Any questions? Although you've covered that pretty thoroughly. Yeah, Councillor Belsky.
When you talk about drainage, is it really wet? Like, obviously you're going to have a hard surface, so therefore, is it underneath the surface that you need to get rid of the water?
I don't know. I mean, I've only seen the site recently. Would you think that gets very wet in the winter there, Andrew?
All of Rocketeer gets very wet. The question is, whether it's stormwater to remove it under the soil, or and how far it'd have to be piped. It's you'd have to have a proper survey.
So I don't know whether there's any existing drains under there currently. I didn't get that far with Carl. We talked about it, but we didn't pull up any.
Well,
pictures.
they're all open drains, and it's just a question of how you drain it.
So a site assessment would need to be done.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Nothing further. Thank you, councillor Ford.
Just wanted councillor Casey had a comment as he knows a thing or two about that.
Yep, I think the main thing is, if I may, is the design elements have to be bang on. So we don't want an ash-used skate park, where the angles are all wrong. We've essentially got a big concrete mass. And the other one I was thinking of, but I was happy to have a quiet word, was just support from neighbours, given that backs onto residential sort of noise levels, potential issues that may arise from that. Yeah, and I just probably, if I was in front of the committee, I'd probably just encourage them to probably maybe go a little bit wider as far as contractor design. I realise they can't get the crew, probably afford the crew that did the one here, but yeah, it's just really important those elements are right. Yeah.
When I looked up this company, they do make skate parks all around Central Farm. Well, one of the other things I might just add is they actually brought to light when they were looking for a site what little recreational space there is in Rocketeer, the village of its size. I mean, you've got the Kawa Rec Centre and the large sports fields there. Pretty much everything else is at the playground, and that's it. We can think that's a village of 600 plus. You know, it really brought to light that there aren't many options.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for raising that information. Right. Do we have Emma with us? Emma's zooming in from Australia, so and we were just working on the time changes. So maybe what we will do is, we did say to her 9:15, didn't we? So we've still got a few moments. So maybe we will jump to item 11.2, and this is the Community Facilities Bylaw Assessment. We're on page 18. And this is where it requires us to determine whether we need a bylaw as the appropriate way of addressing the problems. And there's a couple of options there. We either agree with that or agree with a management recommendation. And then if you look on page 19, it spells it out even clearer. But we've got Lisa online with us. Morning, Lisa.
Good morning, Your Worship. Good morning, councillors.
I'll hand it over to you to take us through it.
Okay, thank you. So the report that's before you provides you with the information you need to make a decision on whether to replace the expired public facilities, swimming pools and library bylaw with a new bylaw, which we've referred to in the report as a community facilities bylaw, or to rely on other tools such as terms and conditions and trespass notices. Section 1551 of the Local Government Act requires that before council makes a new bylaw or reviews an existing bylaw, it must determine whether a bylaw is the most appropriate way of addressing the perceived problems. And the problems that have been identified in relation to community facilities are listed under recommendation 1 at the bottom of, it's page 18 on my printout, but it might be 19 on your agenda. Annex A of the report is the section 1551 assessment that looks at the problems, summarises the data or evidence that council holds in relation to these problems, and evaluates each of the ways or tools that council could use to manage those problems. From this analysis, they've emerged two main options available to council, either a bylaw or terms and conditions. Both of these options would be supported by additional enforcement measures, including trespass notices. Section 175 of the Local Government Act, which allows us to recover costs for damage to council property. And the other option is seeking costs through the District Court as part of a police prosecution under the Summary Offences Act. The table in section 4.3 of my report summarises the main advantages and disadvantages of terms and conditions with enforcement measures, which is our recommended option, or a bylaw. In general, terms and conditions are a more flexible tool, as you can update them as required, such as to address emerging issues, changes in recreational guidelines, or best practice without having to go through a bylaw review. And the main disadvantage of relying on terms and conditions is that council can't prosecute problematic behaviour as a breach of the bylaw. However, we could still trespass offenders under the Trespass Act, or if there's significant damage to property, we can use the Section 175 powers to try to recover costs or go through the courts as part of a police prosecution. Having a bylaw can be useful when dealing with problem behaviour, as a bylaw sounds more official than referring to terms and conditions or rules, particularly when someone's using a facility and they haven't signed any form of agreement. However, this is really just a perception, as council can impose terms and conditions on the use of their property as the property owner. And there's also the general powers of competence in Section 12 of the Local Government Act. So this is sort of more of a matter of staff education and support. So I'm proposing, if we do go down the line of terms and conditions, that I would prepare a bit of a document for sharing with people that work at those facilities to let them know, what their powers are and what authority they hold. So the management recommendation in the report is that council does not pursue a new bylaw and instead manages community facilities through terms and conditions and supporting enforcement measures such as trespass notices. If council agrees with that recommendation, no further action is required. The public facilities, swimming pools and library bylaw has already automatically been revoked under Section 160A of the Local Government Act, because it was not reviewed when it within the time frame it was to be reviewed in. However, the work done to date could be repurposed into a review of terms and conditions. For example, we could develop standard terms and conditions for council-owned halls and share those with the hall committees for their consideration. The summary table of the feedback from the halls committees, which is Annex C of the report, shows that many committees managed bookings through booking contracts, and having a standard set of terms and conditions would provide a level of consistency and legal protection for council and those that manage those facilities. Terms and conditions could be varied, added to, or modified by the committees or trusts to account for any unique requirements. So they would be optional. If council disagrees with the management recommendation and considers a bylaw as the most appropriate tool, then we would proceed with developing that new community facilities bylaw, and I would come back to you with a revised timeline for that. That's all I wanted to say. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Lisa. Thank you. So in my reading of this, you're recommending that we don't have a bylaw, and is the biggest reason for not having, by using the trespass notices and education, etc., is the reason for supporting that around the fact that it's more flexible, that you can manage it as you need to?
Yes, Your Worship, that is the main reason, is the flexibility that terms and conditions provide. I did speak with the managers of the library and the Makino pool, and at the library they've actually found it a little bit detrimental having the bylaw, because then they're required to bring their terms and conditions in alignment with it. So if the bylaw becomes sort of outdated, they actually can be limited in what they can write rules for. So if there is no bylaw, then that gives them a greater level of flexibility.
Okay, right, let's open it up for questions of Lisa. Councillor Quarry.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good morning, Lisa. The question of a trespass order, I take it as it's the interpretation of the staff at the facilities, isn't it? That's not, it's their interpretation that behaviour is unacceptable.
Yes, through Your Worship, there's two mechanisms in the Trespass Act. One, we can just ask somebody to leave, like issue them effectively with a warning, which is under Section 3. And then if they are repeatedly, breaching the rules of the facility, we can then issue a formal notice under Section 4, which is a 2 from the facility.
So how long would that notice be in notice 4, where the individual, would that be 2 years?
Yes, that's correct.
No flexibility in that?
Act lays down the time,
Okay.
but you can, there's a quirk, and it's not a quirk, in the Trespass Act, if you trespass someone, and then during the period that they trespass, you invite them back, so that could be 6 months later, then the trespass notice becomes void.
Okay. How cumbersome is the trespass notice? Yes. So it's just, you are trespassed.
Just a pre-formatted form, you fill out the details, and just hand it to the person.
That sounds pretty. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Humphrey.
Thank you. Atamaria, Lisa. My question is just in relation to your advantages and disadvantages table in 4.3 of your report that you referred to earlier. I got a little bit confused when I was reading this, and I just wanted to clarify. I wondered if there'd been just a slight typo and whether the headings of the columns needed to be flipped, because as I was reading through things, I was like, oh, this feels like it's the disadvantages column and this is the advantages column, but it may have been me misunderstanding the content. So it's just a minor clarification.
Yes, through worship. I thought fix that, because they were around the wrong way. So maybe just in saving it might have not updated, but you are correct. The advantages are on the right hand column and the disadvantages on the left. So they are incorrect in this version of the report.
Not, I was just having a brain moment, so I'm glad it wasn't just me. That's great.
Yeah, no, sorry about that.
I'm happy to move the motion if there are no other further questions, but we others haven't had an opportunity.
No, thank you. So, Councillor Humphrey.
Thank you. I'm happy to move the recommendations as outlined on page 18 and 19, if everyone's comfortable that I don't read through the paragraphs of content.
So we're talking about recommendation 1
and 2.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that?
We're talking recommendation 1.
No, I've moved them on block.
1 and 2. Happy to second the motion. There's no further discussion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. Thanks, Lisa. Thank you for your good work again on that.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, everyone.
Right. Is Emma with us, Ellie? She is. Okay. Morning, Emma. From over the ditch, what's it like in your part of the world?
It's pretty nice. I mean, it's only 6:15 in the morning, but it's looking to be another beautiful day.
Great. Okay. So Emma's from the Embracing Hearts Charitable Trust. Her submission is on page 2. We have read your submission, Emma, but you're welcome to speak to it, and there may be some questions.
Sure. I mean, thank you very much for the opportunity to present to you this morning. Look, as you may be aware, Embracing Hearts donates AEDs to schools around New Zealand that have a very high-risk heart child in attendance. We believe very much we approach, councils like you and other groups that can donate within that community, because we believe it really creates an amazing story amongst the donor, if you like, or the council in this case, us and other community groups that support the child or the children involved. Without it, we couldn't do what we do. So, I mean, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. My question is, knowing a little bit about groups that donate, I'm thinking, have you approached any service clubs or, in our community where the Tānui school is located? Because I am aware that Lions and Rotary do make donations for AEDs.
They do. I haven't spoken specifically to groups in your area. I hope that we would start a relationship with the council now and potentially have your support. I mean, it's a really good, it's a feel good, and it's a look good, to put it bluntly, I guess. You know, it's an amazing thing. Yeah, it's just an amazing thing to be part of and to really to make a difference. And it really does start the conversation amongst, as I said, these different community groups. We would love to have the council support if that's at all possible.
Thank you. Any questions of Emma? Councillor Shaw.
Hi, Emma. When you contacted St John's, did they tell you about the program they've got at the moment where they are distributing AEDs in rural communities?
Not specifically, but we do work very closely with ASB St John in schools. And I have a very close relationship with St John in particular. So when we have a school nominated, which is either by a parent, sometimes a teacher, and sometimes Heart Kids New Zealand family support workers in the area, this one came to us by a child. I then speak with St John. They know the school, they know the location, they know that it's a school that they will recognise and agree with us that it's a school that needs an AED. So they are very supportive of the fact that we are doing this. So they have not said for us to use that particular part of their organisation. I know they operate on the smell of an oily rag, as obviously we do as well. So I guess this helps them do the work they're doing by us approaching other people to support it.
I just know that they sent letters out to all our rural communities asking what their AED coverage was like, and that they were prepared to help those communities that didn't have any AEDs. And Tānui is located sort of in an in-between area, if you like. It's not covered by one of our community committees. So I just know that they are doing some work in that space at the moment.
Okay, I'll ask St John those questions. I really appreciate you asking that question.
Thank you, because if I'm right, when I was at the Rocketeer meeting, they raised that St John's had actually offered another one for the Rocketeer village, and they were talking about where to place it.
I think they had 12 AEDs that they were going to place in rural communities around Manawatu district, and they were assessing which communities needed them more than others. Some already have an AED, some don't. Some the AEDs are located indoors, which isn't always helpful to people outside of the organisation. So they were assessing which communities needed them more than others.
Okay.
I think because what we do is so specific, it is to schools with a heart child, that possibly what we're doing does take that pressure off St John being able to having to put them into schools. So it gives them an opportunity to put them elsewhere. And one of the your comment about an AD being inside, that's great when an organisation's open, but it isn't then going to be part of the 111 system. And with us, when we do put an AED externally, so in a 24/7 lockbox, it means that absolutely anybody 24/7 can contact that if there's a sudden emergency. It does get added to the 111 system by St John as soon as it's been installed, and then it's added to the AED app, so anybody can access it at any time.
Thank you. Question, Councillor Hadfield.
Thank you, Bishop. Just as a matter of interest, there is a machine across the road at the airfield on the outside of the public toilets. But I'll just make that as an observation. And I'm not quite sure how that was funded, whether that's fitted in part of whether that's part of the rural communities or whatever. Always think it's a bit of a worry if you need to defib a pilot, to be honest, but it is there and it's extremely available.
Okay. I'll get St John to follow up on that, because they are trying very hard to update their system, and sometimes they're not the right AEDs. I don't know about this particular one. I will absolutely ask them for more information on that. And sometimes they're not new, they're not within warranty, so we do need to follow up and try and find out a bit more about that one.
Okay, thank you. So they're just some options that are open to you to follow up on. But meantime, we have your funding request. Thank you for taking time this morning. We've got a question here from Councillor Ford.
Thanks, Emma. So I take it that Tanui School has a child with an at-risk situation, heart situation. Are we aware of any other schools in our Manawatu district that might have children in the same situation?
We're not aware of any at this stage that don't have an AED. We put feelers out. We also obviously speak with heart kids, so we're reliant on people coming to us to tell us. Again, I know that St John are trying very hard to update their system and to know what schools have them and what schools don't, and to make sure that everything is under warranty, that they're being looked after, that they're being maintained, they're being monitored. And that's actually one of the other really important things that happens from what we do, is that St John are then able to update systems and keep on top of absolutely everything that is in the community. There are some around that are not worthy, if you like, and one of the things about, again, what we do is that these are AEDs that can safely be used on young children. Sometimes those in the community can't. They're only actually able to be used on adults. So that's another very specific thing about what we're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marsh.
Morning, Emma. Just, excuse me, a couple of clarification questions, please. I see on the quote from St John's, the expiry date was August. Have you had a confirmation that price is still relevant?
That price is relevant. That is their automated system.
Yep.
I have questioned that with them before, but no, the price is absolutely set in stone. We talk all the time. We're in very close contact. They know that these things take time. I guess that really just means it's current for me to put the application in, if you like. They know it's with you.
Thank you.
They have it aside for us, ready to go.
Good. And the second question was, have you got a commitment from Tanui School that they would have funding available for the replacement of batteries and pads when the time comes?
Another very good question. So no, but we also make sure that St John headquarters in Auckland let the local area committee know that an application is going in. So they should be aware that we've put this in for the school. And then they very often will work with the school to help with that ongoing cost and making sure it's looked after.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, so that's the end of the questions around our table. Thank you, Emma. Thank you for getting up early and joining us. Your funding request will go in the mix with the others, and in due course we will make some decisions and come back to you. So thank you for joining us this morning, and let you go and enjoy your day.
Thank you so much. Thanks for your time.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, right. So that brings us to the end of those hearings, and we move to 11.3. We're on page 64. And this is our community committee minutes, plus our youth council. Not going to go through them in detail other than to ask the liaison councillor to highlight anything. Councillor G. Taylor, the youth council, I see there's 3 sets of minutes there.
Yeah, they're all quite dated, to be fair, because things have been moving quite quickly. The Young Achievers Awards are going ahead just in 2 lots. You probably have all received an email about that. And the colour run's going ahead on the 14th of November at this stage. Yeah, so we'll just wait and see with that one. So that's all from us, really.
Great, thank you. Next we have Huanui. There's 2 sets of minutes there. Councillor Humphrey.
Probably just draw your attention to the fact that a couple of great projects coming to fruition out in Huanui. A mural along the wall of the school that was funded through Creative Communities is complete and looking fantastic. And the community committee have also just finished off some fantastic gateway signage at the 3 different entrances into the village. So making fantastic progress.
Awesome. Sanson, Councillor Quarry.
Everything seems to be ticking along quite well there.
Great, thank you. Waituna West, Steve. Councillor Nelson?
No, that went pretty good. It's just a concern about the hall come through as low usage and yet it's used a lot. So I think they're going to talk to Janine about how they can communicate. I think the school uses it most days, but it's not recorded. So I think they were looking through that sort of side of things that what they were saying that the council sort of got it wrong, that it's a low usage. They thought it was more up in the usage. That was the only issue they really had.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I guess it's up to the community to.
Yeah, to communicate that with Janine. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. Kiwatia, Councillor Ford.
Ticking along well, they're working things on the hall. I do note that this is a draft set of minutes and there are a number of corrections. So this is an early version, an uncorrected version.
Thank you. Rangioti, Councillor Casey.
Yeah, a lot of work has been done on the hall. They have a fantastic new kitchen now. It's really smart. The actual hall itself has been relined and is in the process of being painted. So Andrew Quarry, Councillor Quarry, and myself had the opportunity to have a look through the kitchen on Saturday when we had essentially an afternoon tea battle. So yeah, it's really sharp. Really nice.
And that's all been externally funded, hasn't it? Yeah.
And then they've got their rescheduled their community plan for the 17th of November. We'll stay there. So we'll conduct that.
Excellent. Thank you.
As Your Worship, if I could echo the words of Councillor Casey, the amount of voluntary work that's been done in Rangiota is incredible, and they're a credit to the community and to Alan Horsfield, of course, as well.
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. Right. Our new committee, Whenua Taikaria, Councillor Hadfield.
Well, there's a meeting to elect the committee next Tuesday. So we'll see what happens.
To elect their chair and
yeah. To elect the chair and secretary and everything. So we'll be there for that, and very enthusiastic bunch of people that we get with that evening.
they certainly were, which is great. And Rocketeer, Councillor Shaw.
Well, I've covered some of it. We actually had a site visit at that meeting, which I mentioned before. The other one I just wanted to draw to your attention was with all the subdivision happening just south of the village, there is concern about is there any green space going to be available. It's thought that the subdivision is likely to be lifestyle, perhaps similar to Mount Taylor type subdivision, but because of the services being so close, there is the option, should a developer choose to do so, to make it more residential, and therefore some green space might be triggered. But the community committee is keen to see some new green space within the village, and just wondered whether that could be kept in mind with planning as those resource consents and things are issued, and whether there would be any access to funding through development contributions that would come from those sections to perhaps purchase a green space within that area.
There's got conversations happening now.
Yeah, happy to, thanks, Shane. I did speak with the company that has purchased the land. They were completing the final stages of their due diligence and looking at exactly that with the lot sizes and options for going down in size and providing some of the mixed residential. Part of the issue out there is around stormwater management. And so the discussions that the project director was sort of having with myself was incorporating some sort of stormwater management feature with a green space, open space area. So that would be something that they would do as part of the development, as opposed to council needing to fund it through these one. So it's still very much a concept, but that's very much the thinking of the development.
That's good. But if they did choose the lifestyle option, that there wouldn't be a requirement for green space.
I think they would not so much a requirement, but they would still need to manage the stormwater. As Councillor Quarry mentioned earlier, it's always been on the tip. So that applies to that site, and they would need to,
As long as boxes are on there, it's certainly a concern of the community with all the potential homes that could come, that the limited recreational opportunities in the village.
Thank you, Councillor Casey.
Yeah, look, and with that very question was raised last night by a gentleman who raised that as well, because there is another subdivision quite close to Vanessa. It has a similar soil composition as well. So I think we probably need to do a bit more digging and just report back to our community committees. There is quite a concern about drainage and the effects of stormwater mitigation.
yeah, and just to comment on that, I mean, any subdivision would need to take it into account, and our planning team would work with them.
Yeah,
as well as our development team. So, yeah.
Thank you. Cheltenham, Councillor G Taylor.
I wasn't at their last meeting, sorry, I'll scroll down to a bit. I wasn't at their last meeting, but as you heard, things are going ahead with wanting to get the playground underway, and there are just a number of, I think they're getting a bit frustrated with council not getting their things on their list that they keep asking to get done. So that's about where they're at there.
Thank you. And that was raised by one of the members who spoke to us on another submission that we made to council. And I'm wondering through the Chief Executive whether we could have a follow-up because it has been an ongoing question about Cheltenham and some of the requests for action. So it'd be good if we could just tidy those up where they are at and report back to the community committee, please. Thank you. So that brings us to the end of the minutes that we have, but there may be some other communities that aren't in that list. Councillor Campbell. Yes.
There's still negotiations regarding to move the library ground role, but they are still quite keen to see that option, though it should probably be tied in with the library friendship that's going to happen. So it won't happen in the short term, I suspect, but they're not particularly happy with the current site. Looking to move. There's also the issue with the information centre. Foot traffic on that is around to a hole, basically. There's very little foot traffic coming in for the quarry for the information centre, and they feel it's a waste of time. So thinking is that the more central CBD location might be better. Anyway, they're investigating options of where they might be done. That's ongoing work. I will work. Obviously, the Royal Day was cancelled, but the Christmas parade, they are quite keen to go ahead, although that's going to create major problems with a large crowd under COVID rules. So they've come up with an idea, if everyone's heard, of having a static parade at Manfield, where floats will be stationary and people will be able to drive in and around and past them on a slow thing. So I thought it was a pretty good idea. And so they'll be inviting community groups to put together a static float. Like, see how that goes.
Yeah, great idea, innovation. Going back to the information centre, have they had any discussions with the coach house?
Yes.
Given that there's always motorhomes there staying.
Yeah, no, they have discussions.
And not interested?
It's an option. Yeah, no, nothing to decide yet, just investigating options.
Okay, Councillor Shaw.
Just wondering, Stuart, has there been any progress on the CCTV cameras? I've had a number of members of the community ask me recently what's happening, including businesses that have had cars broken into and things. And I said I know we gave them some funding to look at a business case. Haven't heard anything recently.
That has been raised for some time, so I'll pick that one up.
Thank you. Okay, so that's moving on. Right, we're now down to item 12, notices of motion. Sorry, beg your pardon?
We need the motion.
Oh, yes, we do. Thank you, Ellen. Keeping me on my toes. Go back to 64. There is a recommendation there that I'm happy to move that the council receive the minutes of the community committees and the Manawatu Youth Council meetings. Seconded Councillor Short. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? The motion is carried. Thank you. Right. Item 12 is a notice of motion. 12.1. There is a notice of motion on the table from Councillor Hadfield in relation to the membership of Local Government New Zealand. I'll hand it over to you, Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, I suspect that I need to formally read the motion to get a second that no discussion can take place without that occurring. So therefore I move that the Manawatu District Council withdraw from its membership of Local Government New Zealand.
If you do, will you have a seconder around the table?
Yes, Your Worship, I'll be happy to move to second that and ask just for comment after Grant Hatfield's given his reasoning behind that. I think it should be out in the public and we should have an open discussion around the table.
Thank you. So we're going to move it into seconder. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Your Worship. Your Worship, colleagues, for some reservation I move this notice of motion. However, in the context of the government's proposed 3 water reforms and the fact that Local Government New Zealand has signed a heads of agreement with the Crown without consulting its members' councils, I find it necessary to table this motion so that this council can discuss and debate in public forum the performance and leadership of Local Government New Zealand in relation to the 3 waters reforms, which in my view has been suboptimal. The community has overwhelmingly rejected the proposals of the 3 waters reforms as outlined to date. Hence the imperative for this to be discussed in public forum. As a council, we owe it to the community, especially the large number who recently provided feedback, to show that we hear and share their concerns. Many elected members from across New Zealand have stated that Local Government New Zealand has become a mouthpiece for the Department of Internal Affairs on the water reforms. Other prominent submitters have stated that Local Government New Zealand has been used as a pawn by the Crown to progress a proposal that offers one form of resolution and one form only for the nation's water problems. With a reported 7 mayors only out of 67, at this stage indicating clear support for the proposed reforms as they currently stand, Local Government New Zealand, in my view, has clearly not read the tea leaves at all well. And again, in my view, failed to act as the representative body that it is. This is clearly the case for our council. As a consequence, I find that in supporting the government's reforms, Local Government New Zealand have by default succumbed, and I'll quote Mark Twain, lies, damn lies and statistics. A very good phrase I find that describes the persuasive power of numbers, particularly the use of statistics for multiple weak arguments. And in my view, they've done this by signing the heads of agreement with the government on the 13th of July 2021 without consulting member councils. And by doing that, in effect, in my view, have supported or committed to supporting the case for change. I believe that doesn't apply to all councils. Supporting the Crown's preferred approach to reform has been tested through the design process and expressed the view that the proposed model design and approach to reform is sound. And I think we talked about the Scottish 3 waters model, perhaps that not being as sound as we thought. It's endorsed the 3 waters financial, the reform financial package. And if the government decides to adopt an all-in legislative approach, local government will accept all-in participation is needed to realise that the national interest is not actively oppose such an approach. And all of those things are outlined in clause 4 of the heads of agreement. Also has acknowledged that the proposed financial support package is fair and reasonable. Well, we've talked about stranded overhead and what is the point of anything that actually leaves us not better off. No funding payable from the Crown until funding is appropriate as well. So also a governance and ownership structure that is, in my view, convoluted. So the motion isn't actually about the 3 water reforms per se. We've discussed this widely at both council and public forums. It is, however, from my perspective, necessary so that we can give confidence to our ratepayers that council is prepared to hold local government New Zealand to account, given the not insignificant membership fees that our ratepayers fund. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Marsh.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, and just following up from Councillor Hatfield's commentary there, which was good. Many aspects of that heads of agreement just do not sit well. And as far as us as a council, we were not in favour of that. And there's been numerous communications since, even within that last 48 hours, which has not given me the confidence of what their position is and what their actions will be going forward. And I've just got the article that was in the paper this last week from Stuff, where Mr. Crosby was quoted as saying being confrontational or having a negative approach was not getting us anywhere. The government decide what happens at the end of the day. Now, for me, with a political body that sits above us and is representing us, to make that sort of a statement is one of the main reasons why I feel as though we need to have that discussion around the table. They are our overshadowing voice to central government. And with that, they must give or go into bat for us from a local perspective. And I don't think they've done that to date. Having said that, they are still our voice to central government, and they do a lot of good along that nature. So yes, it's just where my position sits at this stage.
Thank you. I'll open it up for further discussion. Councillor Quarry, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I would echo the words of Councillor Hatfield. I think he's known it very, very well. There's a number of things that I'm concerned about. First of all is the email response we had yesterday or the day before in regard to the Chief Executive Crosby's comments to councils that were in difference to his views. And I was very disappointed that he is there elected to represent all councils and to pass those concerns to government. It appeared to me that it was a complete dismissal of our concerns, and that concerned me because councils are made up of councillors and people, and you'd find that a lot of councils that I believe that support it, some of their ratepayers won't be in support of that either. So that concerned me, the response we had. We keep hearing that the system is broken. The system is broken. If it's broken, how is it that Manawatu have managed to get a above expectations grading? If the system's broken, how is it that we've done okay? We've done it because we've committed and we've given the priority to the work that's required, and our ratepayers have paid for it. And that's a question that needs to be asked whenever we hear anyone in authority talking, the system is broken. Or maybe it's not broken for a number of councils. And the final thing I'd like to do is challenge anyone, whether it be Mr. Crosby, the Minister, anyone from DIA, to come here and explain to us and our ratepayers how the system is broken. Come here and make a statement, tour our facilities, question what we've got, and then say, sorry guys, your system is broken. Now, we haven't had that either. So until they can explain fully to us why and how the system is broken, sorry, we don't want to join. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Casey.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to note previous comments, but also Councillor Hatfield's fairly eloquent statement in regards to this motion. However, in my mind and how I see it is that to withdraw is a bit of a sledgehammer in a china shop. It's a one-off swing with sort of no recovery. And I'm wondering, forgive me if I wasn't quite as eloquent as you, Councillor Hatfield, but I'm wondering if maybe it's if we sort of head towards another option around a vote of no confidence or a measure of displeasure or something to that effect. I understand where Councillor Hatfield's coming from, but I'll be quite honest in the public, I won't support it, but I understand where you're coming from.
Thank you. Just a point of clarification, this council has from a previous discussion written to LGNZ saying that while at the moment we wouldn't be withdrawing, we shared our concerns around what had happened. So that letter went to them several weeks ago now, and so since then we've had these discussions with all of the councils, and you've seen the response from LGNZ.
Oh, look, yeah, the response from LGNZ was exactly disappointing.
Thank you. Councillor Shaw.
Thank you. Well, I do support most of what Councillor Hadfield has raised. I have to look at the advantages and disadvantages if we withdrew our membership. And for me, the advantages that we do gain by being a member of Local Government New Zealand, especially in regards to training, legal advice, etc., is very, very important. My dissatisfaction is purely with the government side of Local Government New Zealand, not with the organisation itself. So today, I probably won't support the motion, but depending where things go, I certainly would like to see what's going to happen with other councils. Also sending strong words to the National Council, and whether it gets as far as a special general meeting to review leadership is another option. I actually think at this point in time I'd like to remain part of Local Government New Zealand, but I would be prepared to review that depending on how things pan out.
Thank you. And just to fill in the gaps there was a request from Council, I think it was Waimakariri District Council, a request to LGNZ to hold a special general meeting. The National Council met and decided against that, and then held the Zoom meeting, which we had on Monday for all councils, which all councils attended. We did also, and we sent you out a summary from that session. So to date, the request for a special AGM had been turned down by LGNZ. Councillor G. Taylor.
Yeah, firstly, I'd just like to commend Councillor Hadfield for some courageous governance in bringing this to the table at all. I think quite often we dodge around difficult discussions, and I think this is a difficult discussion to be having, and one that no doubt is going to get some media attention, but I think it does need to, and our community need to be hearing that we're having this discussion because it is really important. And I sort of liken, well, I personally see the feedback loop currently not working between central government, Local Government New Zealand, and us at grassroots level. And it's probably a similar feedback loop, I'd hope, well, it should be, to how federated farmers influence decision-making and policy at a central government level. I sort of see, and for us as a farmer, and I sort of see Local Government New Zealand doing that same advocacy role for us, and I don't see them doing that. And there's been so much negative feedback and questions asked from us at the grassroots level around this Three Waters proposal, and it's, I don't know, is it LGNZ that's stopping it from getting up in there, and even our questions that are getting up in there we aren't getting answers to, and I just don't see LGNZ's governance, and I'm not sure if it's reflecting in the operational or not. I can't really comment on that working. So look, today I will support what Councillor Hadfield has put on the table.
Thank you. Councillor Foyle.
Thank you. I have a lot of sympathy for the motion, mainly because LGNZ has completely mishandled the proposed Three Waters reform situation, and all we have had is an apology from a few members of National Council for poor communication. They have misread their members and not given their members an opportunity to have a say before jumping into bed with the government and signing a heads of agreement with the notorious Clause 4. They had no mandate to do that on our behalf. Alternatively, they were our elected representatives who must now be accountable to us as member councils for their decision to sign Clause 4. We've been let down by the President, the Zone Rep and Provincial Rep. Our provincial rep at least has had the decency to apologise for his poor communication. Our zone rep has made no attempt to represent the views of Zone 3 members. He's only pushed the views of his own council, who desperately need financial help for their Three Waters infrastructure. Worse, he has made scathing remarks about those councils which have dared to criticise the proposed reforms. President Crosby has stated that LGNZ has been responsible for negotiating much better terms of reform than would otherwise have been the case without LGNZ's involvement. And that may well be the case, but for so many councils, the terms are terrible. So it is difficult to give any credit to LGNZ. The crux of Stuart Crosby's position now is that the heads of agreement has been misunderstood and that he needed to dispel misinformation being spread by people who are willfully ill-informed and were not playing with a straight bat. The problem is his claims are at odds with the heads of agreement that he signed. Quite a few of them. LGNZ commits to supporting, endorsing and promoting the Three Waters Reform Programme. LGNZ commits to supporting the case for change by publicly supporting the position that there is a sufficient and evidence-based national case for change, including that the current approach to Three Waters service delivery is not capable of delivering the outcomes required in an affordable and sustainable way into the future. A view to supporting a smooth transition, or LGNZ will support a smooth transition to and successful implementation of the Three Waters Reform Programme. LGNZ will endorse the Three Waters Reform financial support package announced by the government, as contemplated in the heads of agreement. If government decides to adopt an all-in legislated approach to the Three Waters Reform, then LGNZ agrees that it will accept such a decision on the basis that all-in participation of local authorities is needed to realise the national interest benefits of the reform. LGNZ will not actively oppose such approach. However, they may publicly express their disappointment that the government has considered it necessary to adopt such an approach. Nowhere does the heads of agreement state that the role of LGNZ is to seek the opinions of its members and convey those views to government, which is what one would expect from a representative body, particularly when the LGNZ website says this about itself. We represent the national interests of councils in New Zealand. Stuart Crosby also says central government largely remaining silent hasn't helped. Well, I don't believe central government has remained silent. We've had those infantile, demeaning ads that have, in my view, misrepresented the state of council water services. And Minister Mahuta has regularly made comments about Three Waters, albeit largely repeating the mantra that the case for change has been proven. Something that LGNZ is not permitted to publicly disagree with, according to the heads of agreement. So how could a representative body with a core role of advocating for the interests of its members, of its member councils, and the power of local representation trample all over its central purpose in such breathtaking fashion? Signing the heads of agreement without the engagement or consent of its members' councils was a flagrant breach of good faith. They've not represented well at all the views of our council and our community and others with similar views. We pay something in the region of $50,000 a year. I don't know the exact amount, but it's a significant sum to belong. And to not have our views well represented is not good enough. From my reckoning, there are 16 councils clearly aligned with ours and another 10 that I think are. So that's possibly 26 with a similar view to us. There are probably a similar number who are not, but we only know about 14. So one of the difficulties is we haven't been told where each council sits, and yet LGNZ holds that information. So that leaves another 15 to 27 probably that we don't know about. There are hardly any councils in full support of government's proposals. Virtually all want changes or are totally opposed to the present format. LGNZ seem to want to represent those who want changes, but not, in my opinion, represent those like ourselves who are opposed. Having said all that, I'm not in favour of the motion. So at this stage, but I'm sorely tempted to vote in favour of it. I accept that there are so many advantages of being a member and trying to influence change from within the LGNZ tent. I favour a letter to President Crosby of LGNZ, thanking him for his letter yesterday, but stating that it fell very short of what NDC is requiring in terms of representation of our position in opposition to the current format of government's proposed three waters reforms. We will therefore be canvassing, this is my suggestion, we will therefore be canvassing other councils with a similar position to join forces to lobby government in opposition to proposed reforms. We will do this outside of LGNZ, but do not see the need to necessarily withdraw from LGNZ. NDC broadly agrees with the suggestions of Mayor Dan Gordon of Waimakariri. NDC remains very disappointed with LGNZ in respect to signing the heads of agreement with clause 4. We're also disappointed in your continued defence of your position and your public criticism of others that the heads of agreement has been misunderstood, and that you needed to dispel misinformation being spread by people who are willfully ill-informed and are not playing with a straight bat. The problem is that your claims are at odds with the heads of agreement in that you signed an agreement that requires LGNZ to support the government's proposal, to say it is sound, appropriate and beneficial, to endorse the payments package offered by the government, to agree to an approach that requires all councils to opt in, and to not oppose the all-in approach, even if some, most or all of its members do, albeit that LGNZ can say it is disappointed.
Thank you. Further, Councillor Belsky.
Yeah, I endorse those remarks. I think Councillor Hadfield's done a great job in getting it out in the open and getting the publicity which was needed. And Councillor G. Taylor has a good point, because years ago, Federated Farmers was falling short of the mark, and there was a lot of farmers going to pull out of Federated Farmers membership. But there were also a lot of things that Federated Farmers were doing that wasn't really brought out. And one of them was that they increased the subsidy of boarding school fees that a lot of the backcountry farmers didn't know. But so there was work that they were doing, which was good. But on saying that, they definitely let us down on this. There's no ifs or buts about that. So I don't think, in my opinion, that we should pull out, but we should certainly want them accountable. And Mr. Crosby would be invited here to talk and say, why is our system broken? Why is it? And that's a good point, but it also, Councillor Quarry mentioning that it was management problems that they didn't do the infrastructure, not anything else to keep rates down and stuff like that. We have done a very good job, and I've always expressed that to Councillor Ford when he kept saying that our rates were too high here, but we have done the work. So in my opinion, don't pull out, but certainly have a warning shot right across them.
Thank you. Councillor Humphrey.
Thank you. I think most things have already been said, so I'll try and keep it relatively brief. I think just as a point of clarification, at a national level, at a national picture, when you read through the data about the deficit in water infrastructure, there is a compelling national case for change. Within this community, the story is quite different. And I think it's just important that we recognise those distinctions. I hear the concerns, and many of them are very valid in terms of how LGNZ have engaged with us as a sector and interfaced with DIA and central government around this Three Waters issue. I think we've been pretty proactive in terms of communicating that feedback rather strongly. already via, I know the Mayor and Deputy Mayor have been involved in a number of, Zoom workshops, and I'm pretty sure LGNZ are fairly alert to some of the dissatisfaction. The concern for me is that to withdraw from LGNZ at this stage would be akin to throwing our toys out of the cot, and no one's going to pick them up. Central government isn't going to want to interface with us as an individual council. There'll be a limited capacity to do that, but actually that's part of having a national body that's able to disseminate and communicate information across the sector and pick up the very different views. I mean, we have a table of 11, and we can struggle to agree on things. You have 67 councils around the country, the problem, and the issues just magnify. Not only that, but actually we would just be adding cost to our ratepayer if we were to withdraw. So at the moment we pay around $44,000 in membership. But in fact, if we were to withdraw and to decide to engage independently as a council on the many aspects of central government policy that are in development, we'd be needing to employ a full-time staff member, policy member, just to work in that space. And understanding a baseline salary and throwing in some overheads, you're looking at tripling what we're paying now. I think the other thing to bear in mind, as others have picked up on, is that while the Three Waters space has been hugely contentious, there is a whole lot of good work that's happening and a whole lot of other policy conversations that are happening. And in my view, when there are negotiations taking place over significant issues such as the reform of the Resource Management Act and the future of local government, you don't walk away from the tent.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say I've been lucky enough to go to 2 local government New Zealand conferences. The first one was booked in 2017, which I really enjoyed. It was positive, it was vibrant, and a lot of good content. The second one, most recently in Blenheim, not so much. It was dominated by the Three Waters debate. The ministers and the Prime Minister were welcomed and encouraged and supported by LGNZ in support of the government proposals. There was no opportunity, while all those ministers, we had 3 ministers speak on the floor, there was no opportunity to question those ministers from the floor or in any other manner. While the talk in the corridors at the conference was, I would say, strongly nervous about the proposals to some councils at that time, early on in the process, being very opposed. So it was a very uncomfortable conference led by the current LGNZ board. What made it really bad was the signing, as mentioned, of the memorandum of understanding with government in support of the proposals and agreeing to promote the proposals without equivalent consultation with the communities. And then after the conference, as we worked through the proposals to determine if they were right for our district, we asked for further information from LGNZ. They sent us a staff member via Zoom to talk to us, who may as well come from DIA or the Labour government. He talked at length about how wonderful it was. I don't believe he listened to us at all, and there's no acknowledgement of our concerns. Now, on the LGNZ website, as Councillor Ford mentioned, it says, we, LGNZ, represent the national interests of councils in New Zealand and lead best practice in the local government sector. And further, the Local Government Act 2002 states that the purpose of local government is to enable democratic local decision-making and action by and on behalf of communities. It's quite simply, the Three Waters proposal is in total opposition to that key principle. It takes away that democratic local decision-making right. In the past, I believe, as many other councillors today here have mentioned, LGNZ, I think, has represented and assisted this quite well. And I believe with renewed leadership that this can continue. The current problem is that current President Stuart Crosby and Chief Executive Susan Freeman-Green are completely out of touch with their membership, and I think both should resign their positions. So after listening to the comments around the table today and the debate we've had, which is very encouraging to have. I think we should continue our membership for now, but no doubt extreme disappointment in LGNZ performance. So I wonder, Your Worship, if I could perhaps move an amendment to the motion. In this manner, that the Manawatu District Council has no confidence in local government New Zealand's leadership and actions regarding the Three Waters reform. So basically what that's saying is we stay in, but we propose a vote of no confidence in the leadership and the actions.
Sorry, Ali,
It's taken as a direct negative. An amendment cannot be a direct negative of the motion. Perhaps the opposite. The motion is to withdraw. The one's not to withdraw.
Yeah, maybe we take the motion and then you introduce your motion.
So just repeat that so that I can hear it.
Well, so the worship, you will, if the motion is lost, you will allow another motion to be put. I don't think
you can allow another motion because it's in the context of the motion. It's really
okay. That's fine. That will work.
Thank you.
Sorry, Your Worship.
Thank you. I was just going to say my view is I share the frustration, and you know, we spent hours and hours on Zoom meetings, not just with LGNZ but with our sector groups, and the message, it's all been said here today. The message is just not getting through to LGNZ, and I totally share what's been said here. It's around the leadership at LGNZ. I was prepared to accept the apology that we kind of got on Monday. I still think the representatives on the National Council that represent us as far as provincial and zone have let us down big time. We didn't hear from some of them. But I think the response that we got from Stuart Crosby in relation to the email that I know a number of, we've had emails galore from mayors all over the country supporting our letters, our emails to LGNZ, and then to get that response from LGNZ as the president of LGNZ, I thought was appalling. And this morning the mayors are firing up again about that, and that's going around the country as well. There is a growing number of councils around the country who are in a similar position to us. They don't support what is being proposed. That's the question we asked LGNZ. Having had this discussion, are you now going to represent our views? And you've seen the answer that you got from Stuart Crosby, very clearly not. They've signed a heads of agreement that says they can't. There are a number of councils who are suggesting that the like-minded ones join together and do some lobbying on this topic ourselves, which I believe we could do without leaving LGNZ. So I would not support this motion. However, I do want to further our disappointment with the leadership at LGNZ, whether we push that as far as to insist that we have a special general meeting of LGNZ to look at the leadership, or just simply ask the leadership to, particularly the president, to resign. And I'd still like to continue the discussion with the other councils about how do we put our case in front of government. How do we do that, given that LGNZ can't do it for us? So with that, we've got a mover and a seconder, and Grant, your...
I'll exercise my right to my right of reply, Your Worship. And just if I can clarify, because I didn't hear what the reason was for Councillor Campbell's amendment not to be put.
So it's a direct negative to the motion you put. So the motion you put is to remove our membership, where Councillor Campbell's amendment was for us to stay, but send a note of vote code of confidence. So can't have a direct negative.
Sounds pretty like politics for me. There you go. Thank you, Worship. I will exercise my right of response and I'll keep it very brief. And look, I thank my learned colleagues for their very astute observations. I accept that the majority are clearly not in favour of withdrawal from Local Government New Zealand issue. The important thing for me was that we had this conversation in public forum, because I'm absolutely convinced that it's exceptionally important that we convey to the community that we are listening to their feedback on this issue. I think everybody has been rather erudite in the way they've described the performance of Local Government New Zealand in the context of these reforms, and the notorious, nefarious, questionable clause 4 that Councillor Ford also spent much time on, in my view, is really sent Local Government New Zealand back into a corner. And now they're expecting us, in a way, to put our hands up and say, well, actually, okay, we'll try and help you get out of this. But in my view, that's bollocks. You know, it's just not good enough. So I'm pleased to have put the motion. I get the drift of my colleagues' desire at this stage to remain within Local Government New Zealand. And I look forward to Councillor Campbell's subsequent motion. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you. So the motion that, notice the motion that is on the table is that the Manawatu District Council withdraw from its membership of Local Government New Zealand. It has been moved and seconded. I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
We should have a call division, please.
Absolutely. Yes, please raise your hands.
Sorry, hang on.
We actually saw that already.
I retract it.
Okay, all those in favour that the council withdraw its membership of Local Government New Zealand, please raise your hands. Councillor Hadfield, Quarry, Marsh, G. Taylor. Against that motion, please raise your hands. Four boys, Casey, Short, Belsky, Humphrey, Casey and Ford. Campbell and Ford, sorry.
Casey's enough.
Sorry, Ali, did I go too fast? Have you got that? You've got that? Right, that motion is lost. Councillor Campbell.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to put a subsequent motion. I would move that the Manawatu District Council has no confidence in Local Government New Zealand's leadership and actions regarding the Three Waters reform.
Thank you. Councillor Hadfield, is that a second?
It's a second.
It's a second. Okay, thank you. Any further discussion to what we've already had? Councillor Quarry.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's all very well sending a motion to the leadership, but when does the time come when we say enough is enough? You haven't listened and we're going to do something. Now, as Councillor Ford pointed out, there's been numerous correspondence. There's been numerous occasions where they haven't delivered and have shown no intention whatsoever to change their point of view. So are we going to continue to just put our hand up and say, you're not playing the game? When does the time come when we actually say enough is enough? How many more times do we have to receive pathetic emails like we received yesterday and the day before?
Councillor Marsh.
Thank you, Your Worship. Along the same lines as Councillor Quarry, and just adding to that, I had a question here in the fact that during the 8 weeks of communication that we had leading up to the beginning of October, central government had stated that by the end of October, we would have a decision and our plan of action going forward. There are now only 5 working days through to the end of October. We have had no communication about any plan going forward. We've had no communication either from LGNZ as to plan going forward. So I'm just putting that question along with Councillor Quarry's comments.
Thank you. We did receive an email this morning, it wasn't from LGZ, to say that Cabinet have made a decision, and the expectation is that that will be announced today. But that did not come from LGZ. Councillor Shaw.
Can I just clarify, Your Worship, on the special general meeting? You made mention that the National Council considered whether or not to hold a special general meeting. I haven't read their constitution, so I don't know how the members could trigger, which it might be, 50% or a third or something like that. And I just wondered whether we could further investigate, if we're going to be doing a bit of work in this space with finding like-minded councils, how many of us it would take that councils could trigger a special general meeting.
Good point, thank you. Now, who else had their hand up? Councillor Ford.
I would prefer to see this council put its efforts into working with other like-minded councils outside of LGNZ to have its say on a national basis, and to let central government know fair and square where we as a collective stand on the Three Waters issue, rather than trying to call for a special general meeting. I still suspect that we might be in a minority, and so going down that track could be a lot of effort for little return. I would rather just, I don't think it's important that there's a majority of councils that are totally opposed to the proposed reforms. I think the fact that there's a significant number is the thing that's important. And as I said before, there's at least 16, probably 26, and could well be 40, 50. The thing is, we don't know. But even if it's only 16, that's still significant.
Thank you. And in response to that, we know that there are 16 councils in the South Island who have contacted us to say we're all on the same page as you, and they are also pushing to find out how many other councils are like-minded and have a discussion at least about what can we do as a collective group to promote our view, as Councillor Ford said, to government. Councillor Hedfield.
Yeah, look, I actually I support Councillor Short's comments because I think, but I also recognise both Councillor Ford's comments, which is actually sort of slightly different, but I think also very important. But I think Councillor Short's touched on a really good point, that it's just another tool for those of us that are disaffected to be expressing dissatisfaction with the leadership over in New Zealand. In that context, I'm also supporting Councillor's comments as well.
Thank you, Councillor Humphrey.
Just a question of clarification at this stage, because I don't have the motion written in front of me. Could I just, did your motion talk about a special general meeting, or just okay? Because I feel like we've got quite off track, and I've ended up getting quite confused about the various options. Look, I appreciate the sentiment. I think we've expressed concerns. I'm not going to support the motion. I think it's a little more than slinging mud at this stage. If you really felt that strongly that the leadership was that bad, you would have withdrawn your membership. I think we've been up front and conveyed, our position, and will continue to do that. But at this stage, I don't really understand what you hope to achieve.
Councillor Campbell, it was your motion. Do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, we're trying to give the road. Thank you, colleagues, for comments. Just regarding the special general meeting, it was interesting, wasn't it, that there wasn't a proposal to have a special general meeting, and then that was withdrawn at haste because quite clearly President Stuart Crosby was in favour of his position and role, and losing the role. It's a classic case of somebody hanging on to power and glory when they're in a role that's beyond their ability. And rather amazed that you can take that action. So I'm extremely disappointed in the leadership of local government New Zealand. I think it is important that we throw some mud, if you like, put it that way, just to get the message out there. One likely result could well be that we could, we've had one council in the country that has withdrawn. We haven't had any indication of other councils that are considering withdrawing, but we know that there are others that are considering that. Yeah, Christchurch is one. This could be part of a snowball that could roll to create a bit of something happening. So I think it's important that we do pass this motion and send a clear message to LGNZ to up the game.
Thank you. Can we have the wording of that motion again, please, Ali?
That the Manawatu District Council has no confidence in local government New Zealand's leadership and actions regarding the Three Waters reforms.
Thank you. And that was moved and seconded?
Yes, it was.
It was. Okay. No further comment. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Councillor Humphrey, do you want that recorded? No? That motion is carried. Thank you. And with that, let's have a quick break for morning tea. We do have to move through the agenda, and so we're ready to leave at 11:15 to go to Copeland Park. So if we can grab a coffee, please, and come back.
You'll leave the rest on that.
Yeah. Right, thank you. Call our meeting to order. No late items, so we can go straight into the resolution to go into public excluded, and I'm happy to move that the public be excluded from the following parts of the proceedings of this meeting, namely the confirmation of minutes, the library redevelopment project costs, and the Turners Road extension. Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye.
I'd
Against?
like to speak to that.
Thank you.
I don't believe we should be in public excluded for the library redevelopment. I believe that's of major concern to ratepayers, and therefore they should be fully aware of what we're talking about.
The issue we have with bringing it into the public arena is the financial side of the figures, as we discussed with council workshop. There's a number of figures in there that commercially sensible at the stage. Just to remind council that when we initially went out for consultation as part of the long-term plan, dollar amounts were discussed with the public in any case. It's just left up to council to decide what was the amount made which should be spent on the library. My view is it should still stay in.
Thank you. Councillor Quarry.
Your worship, we in fact went out with a price of 5.4 million at the long-term plan. That was a figure made available to the public, and they could see that that was the cost, the proposed cost for the library at that time. Now I see that no different. The reason for explaining the cost then is no difference to now. If commercial contractors wish to challenge or to bid up to that price, that was available. And with a new figure, that should bear no difference to what that figure was in the past.
Thank you. I agree and I disagree. just to be a paradox. So I think it would be my anticipation that as soon as we've made a decision today, that would be released into the public domain in terms of an overall budget figure. Why I support this particular report remaining in public excluded is some of the level of detail that I think is commercially sensitive. So I think we can do a both ends, maintain some commercial confidentiality, but give the public assurance after the meeting about where the envelope's sitting.
Thank you, and I'd support those comments myself. So the motion to go into public excluded has been moved and seconded. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against?
No.
Do you want that recorded, Councillor Quarry?
Yes, please.
Please, thank you. The motion is carried. Yeah, I'll just give a moment to. Sorry to carry on.
Cheers. You get all my arms. Yeah, so working towards it on a voluntary basis as the council sees reasonable. So this policy won't cost the ratepayer money, but it is an action that increases people's awareness of the problems of drinking too much sugary drinks, and it also will help improve health. Sugary drinks, particularly on our radar, because they increase the growth of obesity, and with increased obesity, there are some people who are overweight and healthy, or obese and healthy, but there are there also is an increased risk of poor health. So if we can reduce the rate of obesity, we can generally increase the health. It also seems to me that there is increased public concern about sugar and increased support for action. Some years ago, about 4 years ago, when we said no sugary drinks in the hospital, nurses were saying, well, why don't you ban artificially sweetened drinks as well? There's a policy similar to Nelson City or Marlborough or Terracet, Palmerston North or Hastings. So a number of councils have put in this policy into place. I've spoken to Nelson and Marlborough, I've got to say some years ago before COVID blew up, and they were saying the policy was working well. Obesity has increased over the last 35, 40 years, and the rate of increase of 3 times is such that we can say it's not obesity, sorry, it's not genetics, it is something that would change in the environment, and there are lots of things that would change the environment that have led to this. Since 2012, the numbers have levelled off. So around, I think the latest survey said about 30% of New Zealand adults were obese. So it has levelled off, but the increase was such that we know that it was environmental change that did it. If you're obese, you have an increased risk. So if you've got 100 people who are a healthy weight and 100 people who are obese, chances are that more people from that 100 who are obese will get diabetes, and that will lead to other problems such as some cancers and heart disease. Life expectancy is shortened by 8 to 10 years. That's the Ministry of Health in 2015. There's an Australian study that says that 8 to 10 years loss of life expectancy is for those in their 20s, 20 to 30. So sugar sweetened beverages from a health perspective have nothing, well, have very little to go for them. They are inexpensive, abundant, and people like them because they're sweet. If you put a sugary drink next to me and leave it there over the next few hours, I will drink it. They deliver little or no nutrition, and they're heavily marketed, especially to children. And yeah, we do associate them with fun, but we are seeing consumption is unhealthy. When we went to Palmerston North back in 2015, the Maltu standard was in favour of it, and I think she makes a valid point there, in that if we make the healthy choice the easy choice, we're more likely to make the healthy choice. So if, for example, we've got a whole lot of cakes donated recently for the work that some of my colleagues have done in COVID. So at lunchtime, everybody had a cake, whereas usually they don't. One-offs is not so serious, but yeah, if those cakes are there every day, people will tend to have them every day. It's the way we're programmed. We see food, we eat it in case there's a famine later on. Sorry, was there a question or?
No, sorry, Nigel. We were all just making giggly comments about our own tendencies to pig out.
Yes, I know. I'm fortunate that you can't see my diet for today as well. The sugar sweetened beverage policy proposed Hastings District Council went to Local Government New Zealand in 2017, and it was supported by Local Government New Zealand. So the policy that I'm presenting you today is widely accepted, and it's not on the extreme, for want of a better term, range. It is something that quite a few councils are doing, and it's something that you guys can do. And Hastings Council have followed their own advice and have cut sugary drinks from all events. Where Nelson's done that, they've provided water. So yeah, people aren't dropping dead of not enough water. This is Boyd Swinburne, who's a Auckland lecturer, and he's pointing out that when Cristiano Ronaldo starts removing Coke from a Zoom, from a public internet shot, that you know that attitudes are changing. He also makes the point that in basically 9 years, 55,000 children went under operation under surgery for teeth, and at a cost of 2,600. That's a total cost of 484 million. So it's a hell of a lot of money. And Rob Beaglehole, who introduced the ban in Nelson Marlborough and then argued for it in Marlborough and Nelson City Council, is a oral surgeon, and he tells the story of sitting down to morning tea, tired wrists after pulling children's teeth, and seeing a Coke truck pulling up. He was sitting as the CEO and said, well, yeah, how can we do both things at once? But habitual consumption of sugar drinks, this is a meta-analysis. Basically a meta-analysis looks at lots of other research, checks to see that you can combine all the numbers, and then does a huge analysis of that. And so it is one of the strongest proofs you can get of a correlation. And they're saying, yes, sugar sweetened beverages does bring an increased risk of cardiovascular disease, and it does also bring an all mortality. So any cause of death, a greater risk. I noticed that your policy includes that we make our community and our work environment a better place. And I think this policy would fit under that, the element of care and making the district a healthier place. I'll fly on through. Are there any questions?
Thanks, Nigel. Any questions to Nigel? Comments? Councillor Baskin.
Yeah, I want to compliment you on your presentation. It is a very, very serious problem we have with sugary drinks. They reckon it's more addictive than nicotine. And I know a lady at the moment who cannot stop drinking Mountain Dew. She just tries everything in the book and she can't stop it. And she's very big and got knee problems. And so you're right on the mark as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Hadfield.
Actually, it's not so much a question to you, no, but a question internally. Do we have these machines in any of our facilities? We do?
Yeah, including the staff room.
There you go. Questions answered. Thank you.
And if you like, I'm happy to come and talk to your workplace and explain why we're taking sugary drinks out of their staff room. So if there's any flack, it comes to me, rather than I'm council worker.
Okay. Any further questions, comments?
I just seek some clarification, and again, Nigel, sorry, this is a slightly more internal question. We had some presentations in relation to this, as well as shade, etc., as part of our long-term plan process. What I'm unclear about, I can't recall, is whether we have made a commitment to act in this space, or whether this presentation is coming and we'll be getting a paper back to actually say, yes, let's establish a policy or not. So can I just be reminded about that? Sorry, Nigel, it's post-sugar brain cells.
We decided to erect some more smoke-free signs, etc. I think, but other than that, the council, the Cancer Society one with sunscreen and sunshades was as we see fit.
Okay, so this is obviously something, Nigel, that council needs to have a discussion about. Thank you for taking the time to bring it to our attention again and raise some of the logic behind it all. It is something that we're going to have to discuss both internally, about wanting to do something internally and also for our community. So we will set some time aside to do that. But just want to thank you for your time today.
Well, I'd like to thank you for giving me this time to talk and for your comments. I don't know if this fits under the long-term plan because it shouldn't be a cost for you people. But hey, thank you very much for your time and for your concern for your community. Cheers.
Thanks, Nigel. Cheers. Thank you. So that brings us to the end of our council agenda for today. So we'll declare our meeting closed. Thank you.